bit, get to know you and what you're doing. So I guess first, I know that you've written a book relatively recently. Tell me about that.
The book is called Fear, Forget Everything and Reset. The original release date was November 1st. We had a hiccup with the editor, so it ended up dropping 11/11. Um, just a little background. I'm a retired math teacher. I worked for the city of New York, the DOE, for 14 years. So a lot of times you may notice that everything I do has some numerical significance or something like that. So that's why it came out January 11, or the second date was November 11th. But the book is basically, it's not a memoir, it's not a life story. It's significant stories that I kind of tied together because there were certain things that happened in my life, some stories that I felt were really significant to the success that I'm having now. And there were just these little shifts where if I would have gone right, I wouldn't be here to kind of tell you these stories. I chose to go left, and it was like an active thought. So that's basically the overarching theme of the book.
Okay. This is just some really basic questions for you. Where are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 38 years old.
And you were born in Brooklyn, New York, but obviously with your business here in the Killeen area, when did you move into this area?
I started investing in Killeen. Now it will be 5 years ago. My first investment in Killeen was in 2016, in September 2016.
Okay. So you have invested in here and kind of done the real estate stuff with AJ Homes here, but you've never lived in Killeen, is that correct?
Yeah, I own a private home in Bell County, not in Killeen, but yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I have a house out here, so because we have the office, this, that, and third. Yeah, every city I invest in, I make sure that I have a homestead.
Okay, awesome. Um, so I guess let's kind of go back. You've already mentioned previously that you were a retired math teacher. My very basic understanding is that you were a teacher and then you kind of got into the home flipping, home buying stuff, and then that went well enough that you were able to quit teaching. So I guess tell me initially why you got into teaching in the first place.
Well, the funny thing is, I have a saying now, kinda. I don't know if you know the founder, the story of the founder, Ray Kroc from McDonald's. I don't know if you ever seen that movie, if you know that reference.
Oh, you know what? I think I have. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure I watched it in high school, actually. But it's been a little while. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so McDonald's. A lot of people think that they're in fast food, but Ray Kroc said we're in real estate. So the funny thing is, a
Yeah.
lot of people think I'm in real estate, but I'm really still a teacher. I'm still in education. Primarily, the majority of the money that we generate comes from me showing people how to invest their money. So my mom was a teacher. My dad was actually a teacher in a sort. He was a martial artist, so he taught martial arts basically his whole life, and it's something I naturally gravitated towards. Even as a teen, when I did my high school internship, I interned at my previous elementary school.
Gotcha.
Um, I worked corporate in the Midwest. I worked for AT&T. Uh, I was 18, managing a $70 million portfolio, and I was able to do the job, but it never. I didn't love what I was doing, and the money was great, but I didn't love what I was doing. So I just said, I want to help kids. I want to help people. I want to do this. And that's all in the book. Also, I got to make sure I get you a copy of the book, too. So I'll make sure you have that today. And, and,
Okay.
and that being said, I kind of shared that story in there because that was a major shift, right? Where I could have stayed corporate and made money and stayed in the Midwest, but I wanted to go back to Brooklyn and help kids because I started doing volunteer work with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and I mean I just had the best time in the. So basically, I was in Minnesota for 3 years, and out of that 3 years, some of the best time I had was working with those kids in the school. So I said I got to go back to school, get my degree. This is I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So it's just one of those things. I always loved teaching. I always loved helping people, and I always help people solve problems. So naturally, math just worked out.
Okay, and then let's kind of move into your, your other venture here with HA Homes. So talk to me about when and how you kind of got into that business and why that started, and then we'll move into kind of why you invest in Killeen as well.
Okay. My first investment property was purchased in 2005, and the partner that I had at the time, his logic was to buy houses with cash so that we could cash flow. After doing my own research and working with different people who had more experience in real estate, he was a novice. I found that I was doing real estate investing wrong. And one of the things I was doing wrong was I was buying the properties as Hussain Abdullah. So there was no separation there. So I started working with a lawyer. He's actually a good friend still, Adam Kalish. And he said, you know what, you're going to want to get your LLC. At the time, none of the things that are going on now ever crossed my mind. So I said, oh, we'll just do something simple, like HA Homes, basically Hussain Abdullah's houses.
Yeah.
And that's literally why the name is so generic. It was just like, I just need to put something to protect my assets, whatever, fine. And yeah. So that's how HA Homes literally started. It was just to protect my assets.
Yeah. Kind of talk to me about, I guess, so there's, my understanding, which is pretty minimal, but there's multiple kinds of ways to invest in real estate. So, are you flipping houses? What do you do with HA Homes?
HA Homes has evolved over the years. Initially, again, it was just managing my own rental properties, which at the time was I only had two, right? Two properties in Brooklyn. And then one of my brothers, he's a veteran. He lived in Texas. He was stationed here, so he loved it. And he told me basically the benefits of investing in Texas. So I sold one of those properties and then ended up buying three here in Texas, in Houston. But basically I was able to triple my cash flow. So then it just made sense to come to the Bell County area, or rather to come to Texas. Now, I'm going to answer the question in terms of what are the different things that we do, but that's the beginning. So then, when I started doing well here, some of my friends from back home said, we would like to get into that. So my brother, said, we own all these properties, we can manage them. So I partnered with all of my investors at that time, which is only like 4 or 5 people. But that was the genesis of what HA Homes is now. So we were allowed to manage the properties that we owned or I was a part of because I'm not a realtor. So then what ended up happening is we had to start fixing things. So then the next natural step is, if we have these properties and we can start fixing things, maybe we could get, off-market properties. Fast forward, I started working with my main partner here in Killeen, Julian Barrientos. We started getting off-market properties, and that really exploded during COVID. And I mean, now I have like 70-something clients. In 2019, I only had like maybe 15, 18 clients. During 2020, I grew up to close to 80 clients. And then when we started getting properties that we didn't own, that we weren't supposed to manage, we partnered with Starpoint, and we started sending them all the management because management became a headache. And also we weren't supposed to do it, right? Like I'm not a broker, I'm not a realtor, so I couldn't manage their properties. So I had to find somebody to partner with who could manage their properties, and I could still keep getting them great investments. So I ended up doing management for a point. I still do some management, but that's like in other cities where you don't need a license, and also where I have a stake in the properties. Like it doesn't really make sense for me to manage a property for somebody who it doesn't really have any benefit to me. So management, flipping, wholesaling, which wholesaling is basically just we find undervalued properties and we either get them to an investor who wants to flip it on their own, or we flip it and sell it to our clients for a discount price. And then also, the buy and holds, right? The landlord thing. And this year, we're starting to get into development, and that's kind of what Kemp Community is. Kemp Community is the first project that I've ever had to deal with an architect for. Like I didn't even know who to call.
Yeah.
Like it's all brand new.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wanted to move into that because obviously that's something coming to this area, and it certainly seems like a pretty cool project that you're working on. So kind of talk to me about the goal of the Camp Community Center. Why are you deciding to do that?
All right. Actually, can I touch on one thing I don't think I answered? Because you asked me why did I end up in Killeen. So,
Yeah, sure.
and this is in the book too, kind of in a roundabout way, but you'll have more details because you'll hear this answer and then you'll have it to go with the book. So, this probably, I don't know if this will make the article or not, whatever, but this definitely is in the book. But, so I had I can't even call her a friend because she was older than me at the time. I had a childhood crush, right? So this is chapter 13 of the book. So I had a childhood crush. I was 6, and my current fiance at the time was 12. So she went to school with my older brother. Long story short, we fast forward. I thought she died just because I'm a kid. Like that's how kids think. I didn't see her in a million years. I literally thought she died. I went to school with her sister, who's closer to my age, and through Facebook, long story short, she ended up friend requesting me. And I thought it was like spam because I'm like, who's this beautiful girl? Like, this has to be fake. No girl ever friend requested a guy in the history of Facebook, right? So, and especially this girl, like, she wouldn't request me. I was so young, so much younger than her. So she friend requests me. We hit it off, da-da-da-da. And she actually was living in Killeen because of a military thing, whatever it was. And her kids grew up in this house. And we met because I was looking to invest in Texas, and my brother was telling me about Killeen, but she really knew about Killeen, and she was going to transition back to Killeen because her family was here. So I said, well, let's meet. And then what we call our first date now, like as a joke, but, whatever, the house that her kids grew up in, I actually bought the first time I met her. So it was kind of like you know what I'm saying? Like it was a date, it wasn't, you know what it is. But I was like, yeah, I could buy that house, no problem. So I bought it cash. And because she was looking for a place to live and she was going to move in, it was a tenant, it was a whole thing. So that's literally the real reason why it was like a love story, is why I ended up in Killeen.
Wow, okay.
And since then, she owns that house. Fast forward, it was like a gift, but I sold it to her because it still had to be a business transaction. So now she owns the house her kids grew up in. And, like I said, we have our house here, and she has real estate here, and, and the rest is that. So I'm in Killeen because of a love story. And, and how Kemp Community started was I did a deal with a wholesaler who told me he had a house here on Westover, right around the corner from my office, and he said it comes with 3 vacant lots. And the purchase price for the house alone was a good price. But to come with 3 vacant lots, I was like, yeah, let's do that. Because I was like, I'm sure I could find some use for them. And the lots, I don't know if you want to go take pictures, I don't know, whatever, or if we could take pictures, I don't know how this process goes. But anyway, 910 and 912 West Avenue J, I got those lots. And I went there and I was like, man, like, what could we do with this? I have no idea. And a young lady from Killeen said, I think she saw, I was on B106. I was on B106, I did an interview, and she heard it, so she reached out to me, and she was like, I love the interview, this, that, and the third, and she ended up being a bookstore owner. And I was like, wow, like, thank you, you know, like, thank you for connecting me with this other group. She connected me with a local group here, so she got me an interview with them, and things started to pick up traction. So you had to pay to get on their show. So she paid the fee for me to be on the show, and then what ended up happening was I wanted to thank her. So I was like, you know, can I come to your bookstore and give you some light, put you on my social media, whatever? And she goes, well, we don't actually have a bookstore. We just do everything virtually, and we do like pop-up shops. I was like, well, you do now. You're gonna open up your bookstore on these vacant lots that I have. You're not gonna pay me any rent, and I'm gonna give you a bookstore for free because the community needs it. We ended up signing a lease and doing the whole thing, and that was kind of the origin of it. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna open up a bookstore, and I have a second floor, so I'm gonna put like some community stuff in there, and I'm gonna name it after you. And she was like, no, you're not. And I was like, all right, watch. So that's basically the origin of how this whole thing came to fruition. And then, long story short, the lots, I didn't, again, I'm green to all of this stuff. Like, I'm not acting like I'm Grant Cardone, right? I never had a vacant lot before. Even the house flipping, all of this stuff really happened in this level during 2020. This is the origin of all of this stuff. So I didn't even look at the zoning. They were residential lots. And she said, well, we can't have a bookstore here because, and I was like, wow, I didn't even look into that. So that's how I ended up the Killeen in the same paper in the Daily Herald. I had a write-up because the city council approved the rezoning of those lots. Right. So that happened, and then I was like, okay, well, we'll do this. And then, you know, the contractors were like, it's going to cost you more to fix your roof than it's worth to just tear it down and put up a new building. And then I said, okay, and then that's how we found out the architecture. And I said, okay, now this is no longer a flip. This is land development, and now I got the architect and long story short, and then those women, they said that they had a deadline of like January. And I mean, you see it's going to be March now. We haven't even been able to break ground because of how long this process takes. So they ended up opening up 2 little satellite locations. And now I'm just going to open up my own bookstore because, I mean, now I have a book. When we started talking, the idea of even writing a book wasn't even a concept. That's just how crazy last year was.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So along with, you say you're opening the bookstore there. So what else is going to be in this community center? You mentioned that there's going to be some other things. What else are we talking about?
All right. So there's 2 different lots. So they're 2 different addresses. So they're going to be 2 separate buildings. The building 910 is going to have community space. So I'll give you an example. 912 is going to be Kemp's bookstore. But it's going to be small because it's going to be books and things like that. So let's say we have an artist or author coming out to do a book signing. They now have this bigger open space right next door where they can do their book signing, do a presentation, etc., etc. When those things aren't going on, I'm going to have the open space. So if somebody wants to have a meeting for the community, they can come do so. We'll also...
Kind of like a rental space.
Yeah, but I want to keep the price right so that anybody could come. A lot of it will be pro bono. And we'll also, because of my experience in math and because of my mom's history in education, we created a nonprofit because this group I'm working with that was doing grant writing for me, they coached me through this whole process. And it was like, well, why don't you just do a STEM initiative or a STEAM initiative? So now that we're going to be STEAM based, we're going to have technology, math, free tutoring. which is what I wanted to provide anyway. We're gonna have all sorts of laptops and people who, let's say kids want to come. I want to do a podcast. Okay, well you come down. We have equipment. We have recording equipment. We show you how to get it online. We have the social media people that work with our company already, who are gonna go there, volunteer. Like it's gonna truly be a place where anybody in the community can come and try to be great, and that's the point of it.